Hello, everybody. Roadblock here. So we are on the main account and wanted to take an opportunity to actually answer a question from one of my clan members in my Discord server. Um, it was a very good question. I won't show it here, but I'll read it. So they asked, should I ideal be I no, so should I be ideally targeting crit damage amulets and accuracy banners for everyone? Obviously, the ring is going to be based on what they use to attack, defense, attack, or HP. And it's a I was typing up a quick answer and I was like, well, there's this and there's that and there's because it's such a deep question. Um and so it's not black and white for every character. There's no blanket rule here. You really want to analyze each character individually and figure out and it's not just accessories. We're going to talk about gearing as well and figure out what is important on those characters. So that's why we're on the main account today, just to kind of discuss how to gear champions, or at least how to go about the thought process on it. Now, my favorite champion to use as an example of this is actually my Eris that I use in Clan Boss, because I've made some very interesting decisions on this champion. Now, um, I'm going to talk about gearing as a whole, but I will definitely have an emphasis on um uh what there's a accessories. That's the word, accessories. Okay. I just couldn't remember and I kept wanting to say artifacts. And I was like, no, these are artifacts. These are accessories. So, okay. So first let's talk about artifacts. So this Eris is a very specific champion. She's not used anywhere else in the game except for one area. That's an important distinction I want to make because her gear is set up specifically for that reason. So she has a speed target that she has to hit and cannot falter from. Like she has to be at this speed, no more, no less. For her, there's probably like one or two speed wiggle room, but I got to get as close to without going over the specific limit, right? Because she's in a speed tuned team. If you don't know what speed tuned teams mean, there's a lot of videos on it that I've had on my channel and other content creators have, but the general sense of it is that you have teams that have very specific speeds, so everyone goes in a very specific order to maximize your efficiency against the boss. In my case, for Clan Boss, it guarantees that I have block damage, which is a buff that prevents any of my characters from receiving damage. That buff is up every time Clan Boss takes a turn. We're talking about Demon Lord Clan Boss here. And so I have everyone in that group, their speed is very specific, and I never touch their speeds again for those reasons. But we're not just talking about speed here. We're talking about everything. We're talking about crit damage versus um, other stats versus accuracy on banners and all those things, right? So we want to make sure that so you want to make sure that you're keeping specific factors in mind, like where are you using this champion and how are you using this champion, because it does vary depending on what your intentions are. And I have another champion that will show you that later. We'll start with Eris though. So I have Eris in a toxic set. Now this is a luxury, not a requirement, but for me, I'm able to get enough speed out of this toxic set so that I can use Eris in a way that will get me more damage out of her on Clan Boss, but also still let her perform her required duty for the speed tune. Um, you'll notice that she's in attack chest. She's in the HP gear mostly for the gauntlets, mostly because of the speed here. Now, if I had um, attack percent toxic gauntlets, I would prefer to have those in this case. I want to point out why. In this build, for this composition, Eris never takes damage because she's always under a block damage buff whenever the enemy takes a turn. So in this instance, having attack percentage on the gloves would actually give me a little bit of spike in damage. However, I needed to have a lot of speed on the gloves. You see, we got a 2 proc here. And So that's really why these gloves are being used. Obviously, I would love to see even an attack percent substat on these, which I don't have either, because we're mostly looking for the toxic set part of it, and we're mostly looking for the speed part of it. So, a couple things. I hope that kind of helps you guys think about what to have in mind. And obviously, you're gonna want to go speed boots in this particular build. And then everything else, you'll notice like a triple roll speed here, single roll speed, double roll speed, speed. Every single item in here has speed, including, not including the amulet. Okay. Okay. So now let's talk about her accessories. So for her, I have her in attack ring, which my clan member in Discord even said, I would want, if they're an attack type champion, you would want them in an attack type ring. For the most part, that is true. There are exceptions. And we'll talk about those in a little bit. But for these purposes, because my champion is not taking any damage, I'm not worried about survivability stats like HP or defense. So an attack ring makes sense here. When we go to the amulet, this is where things get kind of interesting. Generally, when you're building a DPS champion, you would want to have a crit damage amulet. But because of the build on this champion, I am nowhere near crit capped. I have a 24% crit chance. That is low. So the odds of me getting a crit are so low that extra crit damage is only going to be impactful 25% of the time. I would rather take the raw damage increase from attack to make sure that she gets that value every time. Ideally, would I love to build her in a 100% crit rate? Absolutely. But am I going to be able to hit those speed goals with that while also using a toxic set? There's trade-offs there. And I prefer taking the toxic set than I do taking having her 100% crit capped. And it's working out for me. The team works, so I don't really plan on making any changes to that. And then for the banner, it's a defense banner, but because for this champion, speed is key. I didn't necessarily outline it, but 261 speed, that's fast. That's not easy to achieve, especially when you're rocking a toxic set. So being able to get a 2 proc on the banner here is very, very valuable. Now, if we filter and take a look at attack banners that I have on the account, here's one that has speed. I'm sorry, I was just realizing that I could roll some more stats on that. So I'm going to upgrade this to 12 and see if I get any speed procs. I got 1 speed proc, but it's not going to be enough. So she's already at the cap with a 17 plus 5. There's no amount of enchantments that's going to increase that speed to what I need it to be. So unfortunately, I wouldn't be able to use this banner. This attack one doesn't have speed. This one doesn't have speed. No speed. No speed. We do get a double proc on speed here, but it's still significantly less than what we have on this particular banner. So, and then this one got no procs on speed. It got a triple roll on flat HP. That's probably one that I could actually sell next time I do a cleanse on my banners. But so my goal here is, speed for this champion. And then because they're not crit capped, I don't want to do a crit damage amulet for them because I wouldn't gain benefit from that. Now, let's talk about Newt. So Newt is another example of a champion that has gear specifically tailored to him. So if we look at his stats, he's very fast at 240. A defense-based champion, right? He is crit capped and has huge crit damage at 230%. Would love to see that higher, but And here's the big but. He has 335 accuracy. Now, why does he need 335 accuracy? The answer is Hard Fire Knight. There's two ways in my mind that you can build Newt. You can build him as an HP percentage based nuker, where he just destroys bosses doing HP based damage. Or you can use him as a slightly less of a damage dealer, but also as a turn meter reducer on Fire Knight Hard. That's how I use Newt. In the recent event where we had the double legendary event and Newt was on a 10x, if I would have gotten Newt, the second one that I would have built would have been defense-based Savage gear, with the whole intent of that champion being to just put out as much HP-based damage as possible. So for this, I make a trade-off of ignoring defense and some probably a little bit of crit damage on some of these pieces in exchange for speed and accuracy. And it's worked out for me so far. I'm very happy with my build. So again, as it was discussed by my clan member, we want him to be in a defense ring. Now, ideally, I would want to level this one up. If I had more silver, I would. And see if this one would become an upgrade. Because as you can see, I did get a triple roll on the defense percent here. So if I got a triple roll here, I would probably be very, very happy. But I need silver to roll that, and I'm not really willing to spend any more silver at the moment on this account. And then, of course, we have crit damage on the amulet. This is where I would want crit damage. He is crit capped, so we want every time he hits, he's going to crit. So we want to optimize the amount of damage that comes out of it. Likewise, I have him in crit damage gloves. A note here that's important is if you're going to use crit damage gloves, you need to make sure you can hit the crit rate on all the other pieces of gear. That's the trade-off. You do get a huge amount of crit damage, but it's a lot harder to hit your crit rate limits. So you'll see we've got crit rate double roll here, crit rate double roll here, and crit rate double roll here, just to be able to hit our crit rate. So you got to make sure, a lot of people will, you're going to get more crit damage out of a glove that's fully crit damaged and find crit rate elsewhere than vice versa. If you were able to get crit rate gloves and then just individual crit damage on each individual item, 80% crit damage, you're not going to hit that off of, you'd have to have, if we look at the I don't know if any of these double rolled or triple rolled crit damage, but you'd have to get a lot of really good crit damage rolls to be able to match what you would get out of the gauntlets relatively easily. And then these gauntlets are especially good because they have a triple crit rate roll. So to put things in perspective, to get the equivalent of the 80% crit damage, I would need to roll crit damage rolls 2 times or 3 times on each one of my items. Now, that's possible, but it's just easier to do it with crit damage gloves. And then if you do it with crit damage gloves, you can also still get crit damage rolls and crit rate rolls like this piece where you can, and I'm still able to get my 100%, and then I get this extra 11% of crit damage instead of it all having to be crit damage pieces to make up for that difference. So give and take, right? The primary goal that you always want to be considering for a damage dealer, especially one like Newt, is hitting that crit cap. That's the most important part. Crit damage then comes after that. But you do want to hit that crit cap. And then we have accessory on the banner. I would love to have defense on the banner, but I need accuracy, not accessory. I need accuracy on the banner. In order to hit that high level of accuracy so that I can land his turn meter reduction from his freezing on Fire Knight. If this was placing a freeze debuff that cannot be resisted, then we wouldn't need that accuracy. Now let's talk about a champion that, doesn't need any accuracy. So my Mortu Macabre is the great example that for this. So Mortu Macabre is used very specifically as a nuker, and he has some really really cool features about him. So his peril ability is I'm building this Mortu Macabre specifically for peril. That's it. I'm not worried about landing block buffs. I'm not worried about landing heal reduction. I'm not even worried about doing damage with these attacks. I'm only worried about peril because peril is very special. It obviously ignores shield and block damage, but also all defense, all of it. So defense is irrelevant whenever Mortu Macabre attacks. And that's very, very valuable and important, especially for the build that I'm going with him. So because of that, I have the luxury of using Stone Skin on him, and I go HP and crit damage everywhere that I can. So if we look at his total stats, he's almost got 100k HP. He's an HP-based damage dealer, 104 crit rate, and 291 for the crit damage. So obviously we would use a crit damage amulet for that. We would use an HP-based banner, and then HP-based ring. And again, so this is all situational because not all of his damage is based on attack and HP, but the peril is specifically around HP. And I get two benefits from that. One, I get a very tanky champion who can take a hit, which he needs to take a hit because his peril is not always up. It only has a 20% chance to unlock every time he gets hit. So I need him to take a hit. So having a lot of HP is beneficial that way. And so that's a good example of like how you want to build. But you'll notice I have almost no accuracy. Any accuracy he does have is just from affinity bonuses, and then 65 just from artifacts that happen to have accuracy on them. I don't even think I enchant any of the accuracy rolls that may have. Yeah, you'll see I don't even put any upgrades to that here. So, and then crit damage on the gauntlets again, because that's our goal, right? We want to get as much crit damage as we can. But now there are other avenues to look at. So we talked about a couple nukers and debuffers. But what about support champions? So for example, Mithrala is a good example. HP gauntlets, HP chest. I could just as easily use these as defense as well. Speed boots, I almost always use speed boots. There are specific scenarios where you would not want to use speed boots, and we can maybe if I have time, I can cover some of those as well. Damage reduction set here, but again, we're looking for survivability stats. You'll see there's no crit rate, there's no crit damage. Now, Mithrala is an interesting champion because she does gain, through her passive, she gains resistance equal to her accuracy. So we're going really, really high accuracy so that she can gain a lot of resistance from it. So we are going accuracy on the banner for her. She is a debuffer, but she also gives support in the form of a shield that is based on this champion's max HP, meaning that the more HP that Mithrala Lifebane has, the bigger the shield she gives to her allies. That's why she's in this HP gear, which I said a second ago, I could take defense gear. I would not take defense gear. I want her to have HP. So I'm looking for HP everywhere I can. HP ring, HP amulet, but accuracy banner because I'm gaining accuracy and resistance off of that, right? And that's just the way her kit works. If we're going for a more traditional healer, we'll just use a Rector Draft, for example. So we're going for HP and defense to keep her alive. Now, I don't think her heals are based around her HP. Oh, no, it is. Yeah, around this champion's max HP. So here's a situation where we want to have HP ring, and we want to have HP amulet, and even an HP banner. Now, it's a little tricky. If you need a decreased attack champion, Rector Draft does give decreased attack. on a 35% chance on her A1. So it's not, it's 35, 40, 45, 50, a 50% chance. So 50-50 shot that she'll decrease attack. That's a really good A1. And that's, if you need decrease attack, then you may want to consider accuracy. For me, and increasing the optimal healing portion of it, because it's 20% of her HP, I want her to have as much HP as possible. And so we've got her at almost 80,000 HP. Another example would be Death Knight. So Death Knight is a defense-based champion, and he's a big tanky beast. You want him to be tanky. You want him to be strong. Do I have him in? Okay, I do have him in speed boots. I have run my Death Knight in defense boots before, with the concept being that he just takes all the hits for my team. And they get, and so he just has even more defense that way. That is a route you can go. I think I put speed boots on him for Faction Wars, I think it was. I needed him to be a little bit quicker to land some abilities. I've built this Ultimate Death Knight in very, very high resistance. Now, at the time I built him, I had him in high resist to resist the Iron Brand from Iron Twins. I'm doing level 15 now, so he no longer resists that. That's an insane amount of resistance. So I do have him in a resistance banner for that reason. But this could just as easily be a defense banner, defense neck, and defense ring. Now, you'll notice I'm not talking about crit damage or anything like that, because I'm not looking for Ultimate Death Knight to do damage. He's not crit capped, so I don't want crit rate. I don't want crit damage on him. I want defense, lots and lots of defense and HP, right? So you're looking for a defense that, I get defense here and HP. I get defense, and then I do get defense and HP here as well. So that's kind of how you're looking to build champions. You want to keep in mind how they're going to be used. If they're a healer and you want them to survive, then you're going to want them to be tanky. You're not going to want a crit damage amulet on them, and even though they're attack-based champions, right? Like Rector Drath is an attack-based champion. She's a support, but all her damage comes from attack, damage based on attack. So if your rule of thumb is, they use attack, I'm going to put an attack ring on them. Well, that doesn't really benefit Rector Drath, because even though she's attack based, she's not really going to gain that much. You're not going to gain much there. You're going to gain a lot more from increasing the healing that she does to your team. Likewise, another great example is another one of my clan boss team members, which is Seeker. Seeker can be built in many different ways. Now, again, I'm using him for clan boss, so my speeds and everything on this build are very specific. But I do use an attack ring and a crit damage amulet as well. Why do I use a defense banner on him? Speed. That's why. Okay. Anytime you see a defense banner on one of my clan boss guys that never takes damage, it's probably related to getting a speed proc on a better piece of gear. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it. This is probably too fast, but this would be a small upgrade of 448. But 4 more speed would probably break the speed tune, so I don't think I could use this particular one. I could roll this banner and see if it would be an upgrade, which I might do, because my clan needs a little bit of extra clan boss damage right now, because some members have gone their separate ways. So those are options. But people use him in a lot of different ways. People use him for speed as a increase attacker and turn meter fill. He's like a mini arbiter in that sense. If you build him with high speed, he can get you that first turn ahead of your opponents in arena. And they may want him to be a little more tanky, so they might not want him to be in these attack and crit damage. But because I was able to reach my speeds while also having him crit capped, I want crit damage on him, and he actually hits like a truck. Like his A1 hits hard. A lot harder than you may think it would for a champion like this that's not really known as a nuker. And so those are the kinds of things that you want to keep in mind. Another champion, um, is Shamil interesting in this sense? Hmm. Yeah. So I do have Shamil with an accuracy banner. So Shamil, if you don't already know, his A1 has a chance of decreasing the duration of buffs on enemies. It's not 100%, 50, 60, 75% chance. And he gets a lot of A1 attacks on enemies. So I like having Shamil with a little bit of accuracy to actually get that debuff removal out of him. Um, but you could just as easily make this attack. And he hits hard with his A2. His A1, not so much, but his A2 can hit really hard. And you can build him. I've seen people build him as a straight up nuker before. I don't, because I actually don't want him to kill the Fear boss head in Hydra. I want my team to gain a lot of turn meter from that. So I don't really want Shamil to kill that head. So I try to temper his damage just a little bit, but he is still crit capped, over crit cap. I would love to bring that down closer to 100, and in exchange for some crit damage. But my gear is spread out across a lot of champions, and it's not always viable to do so. Demitha will be another interesting one. So Demitha is a support. If you're not using her like I'm using her, you would probably want her to be in a lot of HP stuff, right? You'd probably want an HP ring, and an HP banner, which I do have on her. And I should probably look into swapping this out for a tech. I know why I have her in that. I use her elsewhere, despite the fact that she's built specifically for Clan Boss. While I won't alter her speeds, I have found uses for her. She's a really good healer. Her A2 heals really well. And I've actually brought her along on certain fights for her A2. And so in those instances, I would want her to have a little bit of tankiness because she won't be speed tuned for those fights ever, because she's speed tuned only for Clan Boss. So I can see why I would put HP stuff on her. Not so sure why I put resistance banner on. Oh, it's a triple speed roll, of course. And I'm sure you're like, that only has a +1 enchant. Yeah, because she's at 290 speed, and if she goes even just one over, my whole speed tune goes to shit. So I'm not getting more speed out of her. We're happy with the speed that she's at. So as far as these other two items, these could be changed out for attack if I wanted to get a little bit more damage out of Clan Boss. But this helps keep her utilization up elsewhere, um, in the game. You'll see, like, I have an attack chest on her, and that's because it has a triple speed roll. That's just flat out why. HP on the gauntlets, but it does have a double speed roll, and it completes the perception set, which gives me that little extra burst of speed. So I think we have one speed proc here, two speed proc here. So I hope this kind of gives a general understanding about, when you're gearing champions, it's completely situational about how you want to use that champion. So if you were to give me a specific champion and say, I want this champion to do X, then we would build them in that way. Seer would be kind of another example of that, where I do have her ignoring defense, but I also need her to have high accuracy because some of her damage is based on removing the buffs from the enemy as well. I mean, she can always remove my buffs, but removing the enemy buffs is going to require some accuracy. So I do end up having her in an accuracy banner, but with crit damage on the neck, and then an attack ring, but really that doesn't matter because the main damage that she does is based on enemy max HP anyways, which is not 100% true, but it's how they explain it in here. But it increases based on the buff removed. So the more buffs I remove from the enemy, the more damage she does. Therefore, accuracy. And therefore, the more defense we ignore, the more damage she can do. So that's why we have her in ignore defense gear, such as instinct. Would love to have her in savage if I could. Just don't have that as much savage as I would like. especially not with accuracy and the stats that I want on it. So I'm happy to use Insight gear. Also gain a little bit of speed out of that gear as well. Um, but yeah, that's basically the gist of it. It's all about what you're looking to do with the champion. There's no blanket rule when it comes to gearing. You may, and there's another example that I don't know if this is still true on my account, but let me look. Yes, Cold Heart is a great example. Cold Heart is the best rare in the game, at least in my opinion. I'm pretty sure most people agree with me on that. But she is one of, if not the best, she is one of the best champions in the game. She's notoriously hard to build, and this is something that people can get wrong. So when I first started playing the game, little story time here. When I first started playing the game, everything I read about was Cold Heart, Cold Heart, Cold Heart, Cold Heart. You know, you got to have a Cold Heart. Get Cold Heart for Spider. Get Cold Heart for Fire Knight. Get Cold Heart for enemy max HP damage, right? All those things. I'm like, sweet, okay. So I started pulling shards. I was pulling voids outside of 2X's because I wanted a rare. I didn't want the epic. I wanted the rare. I wanted Cold Heart. Um, and it took me a long time to get her. I didn't start with her on my account. When I finally got her, I geared her up. I had her in a ton of accuracy. I had her with attack stats. And I threw her in a spider, and she died on the first AoE attack. And so it's like, what? But she's so good on spider. What do you like? What? She's supposed to be the secret to spider, and she just died like it was nothing. And I had ultimate death knight, and all these other things that should have been there to keep her alive. The fact is, she is a rare, and she is super squishy. And so a common mistake that people make is building her too squishy. Um, to the point where you don't gain the value out of her that you would really want. Ideally, you want her to stay alive. She's going to have to take a hit in some cases. In a perfect world, you'd have her very quick and have her turn meter reducing the champion before that champion ever gets a turn. But that's not always the case, right? So, like Fire Knight, for example, sometimes you'll be able to get in there and get his shield down and then start the turn meter reduction, but not always, right? And I never had a lure until only a few months ago. I actually got Newt before I got a lure. So turn meter reduction was never my forte on this account. But enough with the story time. The reason I'm bringing this up is that I run her in an HP ring. She's my only damage dealer that I probably run that's not HP based in an HP ring because she flat out needs the HP. I mean, if I was to swap this out for an attack ring, and I understand this isn't rolled, right? So it would be a little bit different. But, we're talking about 13 plus 6% extra HP on top of it being HP flat stats. So you'll see that's about 5K loss. So if this HP never didn't get any procs here and all of it went into like attack, for example, she'd gain a lot more attack, but she is going to get destroyed by the bosses that I want to use her against. So, I mean, 5,000 HP, that's a big deal. Now, I do have her in crit damage, and oh man, what a roll on that. I didn't even realize that I need to level this up. And then I have her on accuracy for the banner because she's more than just a damage dealer. I also use her for turn meter reduction. And so in order for her to reduce the turn meter of the targets that she's hitting, she needs to have accuracy. It's an accuracy-based thing. So this is where it makes her hard to build because you need to have crit rate, crit damage, accuracy, and HP stats. I do have her in an HP chest even, with quick crit damage gloves and crit rate, coming from everything else in speed. Now, I run her in a reflex set because I try to get that A3 up as much as possible. I usually turn off her A2 in that regard so that I can generate that A3 more through the reflex procs. And it works out pretty well for me. But you'll see she's at 285% crit damage. She's only at 72% crit rate, but she has an extra 30% chance of crit rate. So you don't need her to be 100%, which is what makes her, she's slightly easier to build in that regard, but you do still need to, check all of those boxes. So when you have these champions that you want to have all of these stats on, you're making trade-offs in different areas. And that's why you see a lot of people run multiple cold hearts. You may see people that run cold hearts that are all about just enemy max HP, just hit hard one single shot. But then you have ones like mine where it's like, well, I also want the turn meter reduction, and I also want, I might even sometimes I do bring her for heal reduction, things like that. So there's a lot of different factors when you're building champions, and you want to be aware of those and how you build them. I can't think of too many other examples. For the most part, supports like Dur here, I'm just looking to get HP. I built this Dur specifically for Faction Wars, and so they do run a resistance banner because they needed to resist the crowd control of the final boss. And I was able to do that because if you look at my Faction Wars, I am oh so close, y'all. I'm at 942. All I have left is Sylvan Watcher. I got it down to the last boss last night, and I ran out of keys. So 5 more days, and I will finally complete Faction Wars. And then I can focus my attention on other areas, like Hydra will be my next area of progression. So I hope that answers your question to my clan member that had asked about, how to gear champions and what kind of stuff you're looking for. It's not always black and white. You just need to take some time and think about how you want to build that champion and how they can be valuable to you. The main takeaway here is, if they're not close to crit cap, meaning 100% crit rate, you might want to consider not a crit damage amulet. You might want to consider an attack based one. If you want them to do damage, but you don't have the gear yet to get them that 100% crit rate, maybe they're 50%, well, it's worth playing around with and seeing, okay, well, when he does crit, with that increase in damage overwhelm the small bit of damage that the consistent damage that I would get from like an attack amulet. So all of these are things to consider. I hope this helps answer your question. I hope this helps any other new players to raid or people trying to get a better understanding about how to build champions. One last thing, I don't think I have any on my account, but if I do, I'll talk about it. I do not. Do I even have any equipped? Yeah, I don't. If you get a gloves, a chest, or boots with flat stats other than speed, that is trash, and you should get rid of it. That's the last piece of advice when it comes to gearing. I see that far too often that people run flat stat items. Now, I want to be clear because listen very carefully. That applies for gloves, chest, and boots. All weapons, all helmets, and all shields will always have a flat base stat. Don't get rid of those, but for gloves, chest, and boots. Speed flat stat is good, but anything else, you want attack percent, HP percent, or defense percent. Well, hey, a little bit longer video this time, but kind of at my target goal of 30 minutes, so a little bit over that. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you for all the support on the channel. One last note, if you've made it this far, my clan is recruiting. We are currently down to 24 members. That's probably the lowest we've been in a couple months now. We've just had a few of our clan mates and friends step away from the game, just because there are some other more enticing options out there for them right now, and they're gaining more enjoyment out of those than raids. So they've stepped away, and we are looking to fill that void so that we can get back to consistently clearing Clan Boss Ultra Nightmare. So as you can see, we've killed Nightmare. Ultra Nightmare, we were able to kill consistently every single day. You'll see I put all my extra keys into Ultra Nightmare in order to do so. You'll see several of my other clan members do that as well. But unfortunately, as more and more of those clan members depart, we're slowly losing the people that are capable of doing Ultra Nightmare. So I'm looking to recruit and get more people in here. So if you are interested in looking for a clan, we're very helpful. As you can see, I'm responding directly to a Discord question with a video that's very in depth. I love doing this kind of stuff for my clan, and we do all kinds of breakdowns about specific teams, for clan boss and Hydra and different dungeons and any areas that people want to progress. So if you're looking for a clan, we would love to have you. Roadblocks Vanguard is the name of the clan, RBVG. So you can just look us up in the game and submit an application, and I will take a look at it. I recommend, and I will delete one, instantly delete ones that don't give me a message. If you don't say like, hey, I would really like to join your clan, or something. If you just clicked a button that said join clan, I don't know anything about your account. I don't know anything about you. So I don't accept those, because I've accepted them in the past, and usually they either stay for 2 days and leave, or they play for 2 weeks and then stop playing the game altogether. So put a little message in there that says, hey, I'm interested in joining. That's all I'm looking for. And that'll be an instant accept. So, all right. Thank you guys for watching, y'all. I will see you in the next video.